Now, the sanctioning of the EFF Deputy President Floyd Shivambu by Parliament's Ethics Committee has drawn mixed reaction. The committee found Sivhambu in breach of the MP's ethics code for his failure to disclose 180,000 rand he received from his brother's company. The EFF has, however, rejected the decision and threatened to take legal action. I'm now joined by Pauli Van Wyk from the Daily Maverick. She's reported extensively on the allegations around the EFF and alleged links to the VBS money. Pauli, thank you for making time for us this afternoon. Let's take things a bit slow. Maybe help us first understand how, according to the evidence before you, money flowed from VBS to Floyd Shivambu. Maybe we can talk about Sgamega Projects, the company owned by his brother, because Parliament says he received these 3 payments from this company totaling 180,000 rand within 8 days in August 2017. Is that what you also see with the evidence that you have?
Good afternoon, Clement, and to your listeners. Yes, so please stop me when I do not make sense or when you want me to go slower, and let's take it from the start as you suggest. I can see the 180,000 rand that directly lands in FNB Private Wealth bank account linked to Floyd Shivambu directly from Sgamega Projects. Now, the issue here is that Sgamega Projects, the director is Brian Shivambu, and then you have to go and ask, okay, if this is the director, who is the beneficial owner of the money? And from there on, one would trace who uses the money, to whose benefit is the money going. But if we take a step back towards answering your question, is how did Sgamega Projects receive the money from VBS Mutual Bank? Now, when Advocate Mutau in the first Reserve Bank investigation, along with law firm Bergsmans, accused Brian Shivambu of receiving around 16 million rand in stolen VBS loot, Brian denied it and said that he did consulting work for VBS Mutual Bank through his company's Sgamega Projects. And he said that the money came from Vele, and that was on record. We still have that press statement of his. Now, even the lie, Clement, is problematic because the money didn't only come from Vele. It came from Wegezi Power, Malebongwe Petroleum, and Robved. Now, these 3 are each companies linked to VBS that Advocate Mutau and Worksmans has found has defrauded the bank out of the money. So we know that the bank's managers sent hundreds of millions of rands to these 3 companies without any good reason. So the very start of the money was already criminal. But that doesn't mean that Brian is involved, right? If the bank managers perpetrated a crime. So let's look at Brian then. And if we agree with him and if we follow his logic that he consulted with VBS Bank or for Vele with Sgamega Projects, one would think that at least Sgamega Projects in their expenses, there would be something like rent for an office or salaries paid to a team doing the consultancy work. There would be normal business expenses like insurance, coffee and tea, maybe a fleet of cars, maybe something tech like, programs and laptops and things like that. And you would expect that there would be a contract between either VBS and Sgamega or Vele and Sgamega. Now, none of those things are there, Clement. What we actually see is that Sgamega has made a hell of a lot of payments to 2 companies named Grand Azania and Mahuna Investments. So from the very start, one can see that there's no contract, that Brian has lied about a number of things when we fact-check him, and that there was no loan. Later it became a loan. So there was no loan. And that the business expenses aren't normal. It's not the normal expenses. Yeah. Oh, and no tax paid. So there's also no tax paid there, which is also a crime.
Yeah. Brian, that is, seemed to finally admit that he actually didn't do any work of this consultancy kind of work that he claimed that he's done for Vele Investments. Because I remember reading from one of the stories that you covered that he, Brian Shivambu, has signed a secret contract admitting to having received about 4.5 million in VBS loot for no good reason. So he promised to pay back that amount of money. Just explain to our viewers what that amount that he had agreed to pay back was all about.
Yes, exactly right. So his lawyers and Brian insisted on a secrecy clause in the contract. Unfortunately, we have that contract, and we could see that the money was partly for some of the funds flowing out of VBS. And Brian had to agree that he didn't receive that money legally, and that he had to pay a part of it back. The rest, of course, had to go to SARS for tax, and the 4 million was what he had to give at the time.
Mm-hmm. So why is Brian Shivambu then, I mean, does that tell us anything about the kind of relationship that he had with Vele? Because what the EFF argued is that this amount of money that Floyd Shivambu received is actually a loan, not a donation or a gift, and therefore there was no obligation to report that to Parliament. Parliament has come back to say when he told them it's a loan, he was asked to submit a loan agreement to that effect, which he didn't. Do we have anything on paper that somehow justifies what Floyd is arguing to Parliament that it's a loan, or that justifies what Brian has been saying, that actually the money I received, which may have ultimately come from VBS, was for consultancy work that I did for Vele?
So remember, we just debunked the Vele statement, and we debunked the consultancy statement. So we can accept now that all of that is a lie. And the moment Brian signed the secret contract agreeing that he had to pay back the money because there was no reason for him to give it. There was no consultancy work. There was no service that Sivhambu gave to VBS through any company. That moment, from there on, we can say, okay, Brian acknowledged that he committed a crime. Okay, so moving on then, from the very small amount of 180,000 rand that landed directly from Sivhambu projects into Floyd Shivambu's FNB private wealth bank account. Now, it's a little bit laughable when you listen to the EFF, because I think they're in a panic because they can't even get that story straight. So either it's a loan or a donation or a gift. They describe that 180,000 rand. Now, anyone listening to us know that all three of it cannot be true, right? And then they say the next argument is that a loan, a donation, and gift should not have been, or they didn't need to declare it to Parliament. Now, that's also not true. The loan, yes. So if it was a loan, it need not to have been declared. But if it was a gift or a donation, more than 1,500 rand, Shivambu and any other member of Parliament is liable to declare that to Parliament. So they first have to get their story straight and tell us exactly what the money is for, and then we can fact check them on it, because at the moment they sound confused about what's going on. But I can tell you from what I see that there was no loan agreement between Sivhambu projects and Floyd Shivambu in his private capacity. And remember, we're not talking about money between brothers. I'm giving you 10 rand because you're my brother and I love you and you're in need. This is between a company and a private individual, and therefore the Companies Act applies, and they need to adhere to the laws of the country, which they clearly have a problem with.
And as you say, it's not like Brian used his own personal account and say, hey, I'm helping you out here, here's a loan, or here's some money that you need to sort out this and that. This was coming from a company, and if it really is a legitimate company, all of those factors need to come to play. I want you to explain Julius Malema now, because Parliament doesn't seem to have found anything untoward around him and any link to VBS. But previously you've reported that this amount of money that was funneled from VBS somehow also came to benefit Julius Malema.
Yes. So when we go to Julius Malema, he was clearly a lot smarter than Floyd Shivambu in hiding where the money was going. So where Floyd Shivambu made the mistake to receive money directly into his private bank account, even if it was a relatively small amount. And sorry, just to step back, some of the SMSs that went from Sivhambu Projects and his front company, Grand Azania, went right to Floyd Shivambu's telephone. So the SMS payments was also going to Floyd Shivambu. So there's just no way where he can say that he had no idea of what's going on, or that he wasn't the beneficial owner of all the money in Grand Azania and Mahuna Sivhambu projects. Okay, so back to your question around Malema. Parliament had the problem that they couldn't trace money into the private bank accounts of Julius Malema. What they did unfortunately do is to just stop the moment they realized that money flowed into Mahuna Investments. They didn't ask who's the director of Mahuna Investments, and they didn't ask who's the beneficial owner of the money in Mahuna Investments. And they seem to not have read any news articles on the issue as well, because then they would have had some breadcrumbs to follow. So I can tell you that Mahuna Investments' director was Matsubani Paleng, who's the cousin of Julius Malema. If you look at the expenses of Mahuna Investments, it's very clear that, again, this is no legal company. Much like Sivhambu Projects, there's no business-orientated outflows. It doesn't seem as if it paid any tax. There's no consulting work done, no contract rent for office, salaries, insurance, nothing like that in the expenses of Mahuna Investments. What we do, however, see is money going to Julius's children's school, money towards the Durban July, which he and his wife Mantwa attended at the time, money towards his and his family's party venue in Polokwane called Maketi Lodge. Then there's money towards the EFF party, their birthday party bash at Iadini in Durban. And then the only money that Matsubani Paleng ever received was 10,000 Rand per month, described as director's fees, which I think is very clear that Matsubani Paleng didn't own the money in that account. And characteristically, by now, everyone knows that about the love for Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Marie. Now, you can see all of those expenses in Mahuna Investments as well, going to Julius Malema, including refurbishments to his Sandown house in Sandton. And interestingly, that is a property that actually cropped up in the On Point scandal of 2012-2010, where Julius Malema was indicted by the NPA but never stood trial.
If the EFF, as they've stated, Pauli, that you have been lying all along about these receipts that you have and that you don't have evidence and that all you've done is defame the organization, I remember some time ago they threatened to take you to court. Have they done that?
No, they haven't. But let's unpack the allegation of lies. So let's argue then that I may have lied about all of it. So the characteristics of lies, especially propaganda-like lies, are that it's quite vague, that it's made up, and that it can be easily debunked. Like you and I just did with Brian's story about Sivhambu, where he spinned the story that when you look at the facts, it doesn't check out. So if they then feel that I lied to them, they could have very easily pointed to facts where it wasn't true. No money went to Julius Malema's children's schools. No money went to his family's Maketi Lodge. No money went to his Sandown house in Sandton. So all of those things are very easy to disprove. and especially in a court where you will then bring a civil case of defamation against me, and I will then have to prove that I have the receipts, I have the information, I have the facts, and I can back up what I say. And if I lied, I will not be able to do that, and a court will not be able to find me in the right. And they have never done that, Clement. They've never taken me to court, even though they threatened from the start to the end.
All right, Pauli Van Wyk, I hope they will do that, because what it will do is that it will also somehow force them to put those matters on the table. And that will give us a lot of clarity around these money flows from VBS and of course, to some of the leaders as per your own evidence. Thank you for making time for us. Pauli Van Wyk is with the Daily Maverick.